So you say when? All right, we're going live now. Good. Okay, so you're listening to Ask Your Herb Doctor, KMUD Garble 91.1 FM, and on the web at www.kmud.org. We're also live streaming this program to our Western Botanical Medicine YouTube channel, so you can listen live right now on our channel by searching Western Botanical Medicine in the search bar on YouTube. And click on the live stream. So today, January the 17th, 2025, our first broadcast of this year. Welcome to those who are listening. I hope you had a great Christmas and the new year started off well for you. My name's Andrew Murray.
My name's Sarah Johannesson Murray. Welcome to tonight's show.
We're both licensed medical herbalists who consult with clients with a wide range of conditions, and we've been doing this for 27 years now. Our website is westernbotanicalmedicine.com, and you can visit our site to see a list of our organic medicinal herb tinctures, and our contact details are there also. Alternatively, we can be reached on our toll-free number, which is 1-888-WBM-HERB, and our Western Botanical Medicine Twitter account handle is @WBM-HERB. Links to both our Twitter and YouTube channels are also on our website at westernbotanicalmedicine.com. Okay, so enough of that. The beginning of this year is going to be a finish up from December of last year's discussion on aromatase blocking herbs, and I mentioned during that show that the synergistic effect and the additive effect of various compounds have been well documented to increase bioavailability, absorption, and all the positive benefits of co-administered herbs. So two particular compounds, well, three really. So piperine from black pepper, chrysin, which is a compound which can be found in passion flower. So the last thing, capsaicin. So those from chili peppers. So going to cover black pepper, going to go through passiflora and chrysin, and then look at the compound capsaicin in chili pepper as glaring examples of, you know, the kind of glib phrase of synergy or synergism that I think is thrown around in kind of herbal medicine classes in school. Is a completely scientific concept. It's absolutely not bogus in any way at all, and I just want people to get a grasp of the abundant measures of natural substances that you just don't get in isolated compounds. So without going on a big tirade about regular medicine, isolating active ingredients and pharmaceutical drugs just being single molecules that have been isolated typically from natural species of plant, animal, fungi, etc. Those isolated compounds being used as a drug, how they are out of the context of the entire phytochemistry surrounding that active ingredient that would be found naturally in an herb, that there are many synergistic effects of the extra compounds in the herb that the active ingredient has been derived from that are beneficial. And if taken out of context, these things can often be not as effective or have side effects that would be mitigated by having exposure to the entire phytochemical complex within the particular plant for which that chemical has been extracted. So enough of that. So synergy is a real it's a real effect. It's actually not bogus, and I'm going to explain tonight how three of these compounds, piperine, chrysin, and capsaicin, are specifically shown in plenty of research to be very beneficial for the overall effects of the herb that we are going to be discussing. So ethanol extraction of piperine, typically from black pepper, and its combination with turmeric, curcuma longa, or chrysin-rich sources from passion flower can significantly enhance bioavailability and maximize anti-aromatase activity. So let's just begin with a kind of quick discussion about piperine, as alkaloid found in black pepper. So firstly, then dried, and I'm going to give you an outline of how we'd extract this, and if you want to do this at home, this is typically something like if you're in some herb class at this point, you know, you can get You get your pestle and mortar out, and you've got ethanol and water, or a soxhlet, reflux apparatus, and rotary evaporator, and all the rest of it. Depends. If you want to be very basic about this, you can do it quite simply with using ethanol as the extractant, and simple equipment. Or if you're into if you're into pharmacy, and you've got a reflux, and you've got soxhlet evaporator, I'll also outline that very briefly because most people don't have it. But quite simply, black pepper can be extracted very efficiently in ethanol. So what you would do is you just get dried black pepper, preferably organic, obviously organic, as we don't deal with anything else unless we can't find it in the trade. There's very few herbs at this point in time that are not available organic, but there are some. But ultimately, everything that we're going to talk about tonight and have been talking about in the past and will talk about is looking at a certified organic product. So it's going to be as clean as possible compared to conventionally produced products. So dried black pepper seeds, and you grind them to a fine powder. And like I said, ethanol is a great solvent for this compound. So typically 95% ethanol, so that would be a 190 proof. But okay, most people don't have access to 190 proof unless they're in the business. So the next best thing, obviously, is a high proof vodka. So I'm sure there are vodkas out there that are at least 100 proof, if not a little more than 100. And that would be something equivalent to 55% or 60% ethanol. And that would also be pretty good. I mean, it's a degree of absolutes we're talking about. So, a good high proof ethanol vodka would work just as well. Okay, so for the extraction steps, then you basically soak the ground black pepper in ethanol in a 1:10 weight for volume ratio for 24 to 48 hours, typically at room temperature. Like I said, or in a soxhlet apparatus for more efficient extraction. So just to briefly cover the soxhlet concept, is it's essentially a vessel in which a cellulose thimble is placed, ground crude material is placed into the thimble, and then ethanol is put in a flask below it, so they're connected by ground glass joints. So you bring the ethanol to its boiling point of about 70 Celsius in a heating mantle, and then the ethanol evaporates and ascends through the soxhlet evaporation equipment, the soxhlet glass apparatus, and condenses above it on a condenser. So you have a water circulating condenser above it, and then the vapors that are passing through the soxhlet, which would be the boiling point of ethanol, meet the condenser, which has cold water running through it, and it condenses the vapor back into liquid form, and pure ethanol would drop into the thimble, and the contents of the thimble would gradually get wetted more and more until they were completely saturated. And within that soxhlet apparatus is a small glass tube that connects the base to the reflux part, where the thimble will drain, and all of that extractant that's been pulled out in that first pass goes back into the flask below, and the cycle is a continuous closed circulation. So the ethanol will constantly keep coming off of the bottom flask as pure ethanol, will condense onto the condenser above the soxhlet equipment, dripping pure ethanol back onto your substrate, and the washing and rewashing will completely wash all of the extractant that you're looking for back into the flask below, and then you separate that ethanol in a rotary evaporator, and you would recover the ethanol under high vacuum, low temperature, and what you would have as a resulting fraction would be more or less pure piperine. So that's a kind of classy way of doing it if you have the equipment and the time and the interest. Otherwise, you can just use straightforward cold ethanol in a closed container, macerate it for 2 to 4 days at regular room temperature, and then press it out, and then you get about a 3 to 9% typically a yield of piperine. So 3 to 9% of black pepper's dry weight typically is piperine, so you can get anywhere from 3 to 9%. And ethanol, it's extremely safe and it's food grade. So that's why it's used in the production of medicinal herb extracts, because it's what they call a universal solvent. And so for differing concentrations of water to ethanol, you can pull out different fractions of phytochemicals that are either more or less soluble in ethanol. So it has a wide range of applicability. For this instance, alkaloids in 95% is probably one of the best concentrations. If there are other more water-soluble things, obviously 25% would be the opposite end of the spectrum. So piperine itself is is an extremely potent bioavailability enhancer. And what it does, it inhibits the first several things, but one of the first things piperine is important for, it actually inhibits certain enzymes like CYP3A4 and P-glycoprotein. Now, both of these metabolize or efflux compounds from cells. So if you can inhibit this enzyme from working, you're basically making what you have more available to the body. And actually, at this point in time, you need to be also cautiously aware that inhibiting these two enzymes can make the availability of drugs that you're taking last a lot longer. So, you need to be a little bit aware that you are definitely affecting your pharmacology, your physiology, by using these things. So if you're taking drugs for any particular condition, you need to be aware that if you're going to block these drugs from being removed by blocking the enzyme, then you're going to make them more potent than they could normally be, because your liver would be dealing with it and excreting it. So just a word of caution. So it also prolongs the plasma half-life, like I said, of other co-administered compounds. So it'll block the enzyme, it'll prolong the plasma half-life. It increases the absorption by increasing the permeability of intestinal cells. So directly, piperine actually improves absorption by increasing the permeability of intestinal cells, and makes it easier to get into the intestine just by opening them up, essentially. Now, when combined with turmeric as a curcumin-rich product or chrysin-rich herbs, piperine improves the systemic availability of these compounds, allowing them to exert their anti-aromatase activity more effectively. And combining piperine with turmeric or chrysin-rich sources like passion flower can make them both more bioavailable and active. To maximize anti-aromatase activity, the following ratios then could be considered and are recommended, with piperine and turmeric being kind of the first example here. So turmeric with a curcumin content of 3 to 5% to piperine at a 10-to-1 ratio by weight. So an example would be, and this is kind of, European system international units, so we're talking milligrams or kilos. It's 500 milligrams of turmeric extract to 50 milligrams of piperine, so this would be a 10-to-1 ratio. So I'm sorry if I can't put that into ounces, folks, but it's really not that doable. So 500 milligrams of turmeric to 50 milligrams of piperine. And curcumin inhibits aromatase expression, while piperine increases its bioavailability by up to 2,000%. So this is some of the reason why these things are done and are co-administered, just to increase the availability of otherwise very poorly absorbed substances. Unfortunately, curcumin is one of those that's not particularly well absorbed. I mean, obviously you do absorb some of it, and it is all by degrees, but if you can get a 2,000% extra increase in curcumin, then using it with piperine would be a no-brainer. And I think this leaves some credence to Indian cooking, where turmeric is a very popular spice in Indian cooking, and so is black pepper. I mean, so these things are naturally there in the meal without even trying to do something. They're just the natural quote-unquote synergy of Indian cooking lends itself to this very well.
And doesn't the high saturated fat help you absorb the curcumin?
Well, it does, and we're gonna cover that too, because that's an important point.
Like from ghee and or coconut oil, when they use that to fry the spices.
And that's absolutely right. Okay, so let's just look at piperine and chrysin rich herbs. So the chrysin or chrysin extract of piperine at a 10-to-1 or 5-to-1 ratio by weight. For an example then, 200 milligrams of chrysin-rich herb, something like passion flower, to 20 to 40 milligrams of piperine. Again, chrysin directly inhibits aromatase, while piperine enhances its absorption and prolongs its activity. Now, this would be effective for testosterone optimization, reducing estrogen in hormone-related cancers, or addressing gynecomastia, for example, in males. And then thirdly, piperine plus turmeric and chrysin. The ratio for this then given would be a 10 to 5 to 1 ratio by weight. For example, 500 milligrams of turmeric to 250 milligrams of passion flower to 50 milligrams of piperine. So both the chrysin and the curcumin will be made more bioavailable by the addition of piperine. And this synergistic aromatase inhibition and enhanced systemic bioavailability of curcumin and chrysin can be achieved. So this forms a kind of comprehensive strategy for estrogen-related conditions, as we spent the last couple of months discussing the impact of estrogen and all the multifaceted, pathologies that come out of aberrant estrogen exposure. And without getting into that, because we've already done it, December, November, October shows, so people should take a look at the archives or go on our YouTube channel and look at the previous shows that we've done on the problems with estrogen and how aromatase blocking herbs can totally be used to mitigate the problems associated with estrogen dominance. Now, as Sarah said, you can use either liposomal or nanoparticle formulations to further enhance the bioavailability. So, obviously using fatty substances like coconut oil or butter with the meal, with the turmeric, would enhance its availability, as well as, if you could create nanoparticles from this with a machine that would do that great, just that surface area for intestinal absorption is just made more enhanced by increasing that tiny particle size. Okay, some people can get irritated with black pepper, and there is a kind of recommendation that's a fairly typical online recommendation for the upper limit of it. So 20 milligrams of piperine extract is given as a kind of cautionary maximum. And then, like I said, be mindful of potential interactions with medications that are metabolized by the CYP3A4 enzyme system, because you'll find these drugs hanging around a lot longer. Okay, and like I said, dietary fat, we've mentioned that that fat-rich meals enhance the absorption, especially for curcumin and chrysin.
And a great recipe for vegetarians or meat eaters is to make a cauliflower, Indian cauliflower, where you fry the mustard seeds and the turmeric and the garlic and the asafoetida in the coconut oil until the mustard seeds pop. And then you add the cauliflower cut up into little florets and stir fry them until it's all coated in the turmeric and, of course, black pepper in there too, in the turmeric coating, the oily mixture, and then you add just a little bit of broth or water and you steam it until tender, and it really takes away the bad smelling sulfur, and it's a great way to get kids to eat cauliflower. Trust me, it works.
Okay, you're listening to Ask Your Herb Doctor on KMD Garberville 91.1 FM, and from 7:30 till the end of the show at 8 o'clock, you're invited to call in with questions. Yep, the regular number 707-923-3911. I don't think it's changed in the last 20 years, has it? Okay, so callers are welcome from 7:30 on. So there are some, kind of alcohol-free alternatives for doing this. I know some people have said in the past, they just can't tolerate alcohol, or they're recovering, alcoholics, and they don't want to use alcohol extracts of medicinal herbs, and that's fair enough.
And you can, if you don't want to use any of the alcohol, you can pour your daily dose out into a little wide cup and let the alcohol evaporate. It takes about 24 to 48 hours, depending on the temperature in the house.
Yep, totally.
So you can do that as well, and then add a little hot water, not boiling, in case it will make the essential oils steam off. So you can do that as a way to avoid the alcohol intake.
And I have a friend who made a echinacea extract where they would make the alcohol extract and then add glycerin in and then extract the alcohol back out and reuse it. So not only did they save a lot on alcohol, but that way you can do a whole lot of echinacea without getting drunk. So when you talk about glycerin extracts, I think that it's always not extracting in the glycerin, but you use the glycerin to extract it
To
out of the
preserve
alcohol.
it. Yeah, and and that then acts as a preservative. I worry a little bit about the manufacturing process for glycerin because it can be not very clean. So I prefer, if you were to do that, you could just evaporate off the alcohol, or if you didn't want to use heat, I mean, you can do it under a vacuum, rotary evaporate. But otherwise, I mean, echinacea doesn't have that high of a dose. It's not something that, you'd really want to be drinking glasses of.
You could also make an oxymel of it if you evaporated the ethanol off of an extract. Then you could make it miscible with honey, and use that as they called those oxymels back in medieval times.
Yeah, so if you get rid of the alcohol off of a tincture, then you can add the honey to preserve it.
Exactly. Yeah, to keep it mold-free, etc. All right. So alcohol-free alternatives then. So what I was thinking more along the lines was something like supercritical CO2 extracts. These typically are pretty well suited, especially to fatty sterol-based things like saw palmetto or hypericum, even St. John's wort, but can be used for alkaloids, and piperine is one of those. But you just might get slightly lower concentrations than you would from a high ethanol extract. So just to basically sum it up then, so the ethanol extracted piperine is a pretty powerful tool to enhance the efficacy of turmeric and chrysin-rich herbs, as I've mentioned, in inhibiting aromatase activity, which is the whole point of this. And a typical combination ratio of 10:1 for turmeric to piperine and 10:1 or 5:1 for chrysin to piperine, with a potential blend of all three at 10:5:1. And these combinations offer synergistic effects then, which is what we're covering here with piperine, improving bioavailability and prolonging the activity of curcumin and chrysin, making them more effective in managing estrogen-related condition. So capsaicin is the other one I wanted to look at. The active chemical in chili pepper extract, primarily capsaicin, has properties that can increase the bioavailability of other phytochemicals. So capsaicin, the primary bioactive alkaloid in chili peppers, or the capsicum species, is known for its effects on metabolism, absorption, and drug interaction mechanisms. Now, like piperine in black pepper, capsaicin can enhance the bioavailability of certain compounds through several mechanisms. First, the stimulation of digestive secretions. So capsaicin increases gastric acid secretion and bile production, which can improve the solubility and absorption of fat-soluble phytochemicals, for example, curcumin from turmeric or chrysin, as we mentioned, from passion flower.
And of course, because chili does increase the stomach acid, then if you have a higher stomach acid, then unless you have ulcers, it's very useful for extracting the nutrients out of the food you're eating, and so you suffer you can avoid many nutritional deficiencies by adding chili to your food. Just not too much, because we have mentioned before on shows that in Bhutan, chili peppers are one of the main ingredients of their foods for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they also have the highest rate of stomach cancer. So moderation, but it does definitely help improve digestion if you can tolerate a little chili.
Okay, so firstly then it was the stimulation of digestive secretion. Secondly, improves intestinal absorption. So as you said here, capsaicin enhances intestinal blood flow and modulates the permeability of intestinal epithelial cells, facilitating the absorption of co-administered compounds. Thirdly, inhibiting the metabolizing enzymes. We've mentioned that with enzymes, liver enzymes like CYP450s, slowing the metabolism of certain phytochemicals and allowing them to remain active in the bloodstream for longer periods. And then fourth and last, the synergistic effects with other compounds. So it's hypothesized that capsaicin can act synergistically with other phytochemicals, particularly antioxidants, to amplify their biological effects. And it's one of the main reasons we've always been opposed to the, active ingredient, quote unquote, just looking at an herb, and saying, well, this is the ingredient that is responsible for this effect, and we're just going to extract that ingredient and produce it in a capsule or tablet or pill. And I've always been opposed to that because it really just negates the entire concept of synergy. So to compare...
There's a question here we have on the live stream, and the question is that passion flower is put out for many teas and for relaxation and sleep. And so I'd like you to comment, please, Andrew, on whether passion flower is better as a tea or as a tincture in relation to the chrysin content, and also for the relaxation. We make our extract at 45%.
Yeah, exactly.
It extracts the active medicinal compounds a little better if it's a higher alcohol. So I'll let you finish.
Well, on that basis, that's the answer, really. If it was 20-25% more water soluble, I'd say a tea would be totally fine. I think it's basically halfway between being water soluble and ethanol, high ethanol soluble. So it's going to be active. It's going to have some activity to it, but it's, like I said, it's degrees of ideals. It would be more ideal as an extract because there would be a higher content in it for a smaller volume. Again, if you want to talk about nighttime, you don't want to be sitting there drinking a cup, of extra fluid before you go to sleep, because that could also promote diuresis and that could keep you awake. So there's probably a good point to use a more concentrated extract, not just because it's better extracted, but because there's a smaller volume of liquids lasting at night.
Yeah.
So, while capsaicin shares some bioavailability enhancing properties with piperine, it may be less potent in directly inhibiting specific enzymes like CYP3A4 or P-glycoprotein. So piperine is more widely recognized and studied for this role. However, capsaicin's stimulation of digestion and absorption mechanisms provides a complementary pathway for improving bioavailability. Capsaicin can enhance the absorption and efficacy of the following types of phytochemicals. We're going to list curcumin, we mentioned, found in turmeric. It can improve curcumin's poor solubility and intestinal absorption. As mentioned before, it's not very well absorbed otherwise. Fat-soluble vitamins and compounds like vitamin A, D, E, and K, as well as carotenoids like beta-carotene and lycopene, can also benefit from co-administration with capsaicin purely from that mechanism. And then other flavonoids such as chrysin, quercetin, or apigenin, which also face similar bioavailability challenges. Capsaicin, again, can be, as well as curcumin, can be another novel way of increasing their bioavailability. Okay, so I think that's pretty much all I've got to say about those three herbs, but just to discuss the concept of synergy and just to reiterate that it's really not bogus, it's absolutely rooted in good science, and that's the reason why we've just outlined there with those compounds. So I wanted to carry on. I'll just begin by saying it's 7:30, so we can open up the call lines and take any calls from here on through to 8 o'clock. But the subject of tonight is going to be kind of rooted in synergy and herbs and compounds that promote the increased availability, absorption, etc. So looking at the synergistic effects then from phytochemicals and how they affect biological systems. So recent research has shown that synergistic effects are the basis of the action of most phytochemicals in biological systems. So as I've said, the complex interactions of phytochemicals facilitate the combined action on multiple cellular and molecular targets, leading to measurable biological effects. Certain substances can enhance or amplify the biological activity of plant-derived phytochemicals, essentially making them more effective in their intended function, like antioxidant activity or anti-inflammatory properties or anti-cancer effects, when combined with other compounds. This often occurs through synergistic mechanisms where the combined effect is greater than the sum of individual components. A great example has been around for decades is the aspirin and caffeine example. Okay, I think its generic name here is anacin, not to be confused with anadin, which is the British counterpart, but for which the British counterpart also contains paracetamol. So it's aspirin, paracetamol, and caffeine. So the name for it here is just aspirin, and caffeine is anacin. It's an example of synergism then, in that when combined they provide greater efficacy and pain relief in patients with pain. If they aren't in combination, the efficacy and pain relief aren't as high. So clinically studied, clinically proved. It's just, I mean, I don't need to prove myself on the synergy point of view, but just to bring out some examples here of how these things are just well known, and that's why they're formulated together. Okay, so I'm going to start talking about, it's kind of going to go a little bit round the mountain and might seem a little convoluted or disconnected at times, but wanted to bring out different classes of phytochemicals and just discuss the synergistic effects of how these different phytochemicals are used in pathology, and how their synergistic effects is greater than the sum of the individual parts. So to discuss lipids then, fats, these plants being the natural source of medicines and their roots, not just the leaves, but the roots, stems, leaves, seeds, are rich in polysaccharides, flavonoids, saponins, phytosterols, fatty acids, phenols, polypeptides, and other small molecular compounds which are active ingredients in drugs for cardiovascular disease. We're going to talk about lipids a little bit. So many in vitro and animal studies have shown that the consumption of these bioactive phytochemicals significantly improves hypertension, low-density lipoprotein oxidation, lipid peroxidation, total plasma antioxidant capacity, and dyslipidemia. So we want to talk about a plant called Hypophae rhamnoides, the sea buckthorn. Don't want to really go into it in big detail, but it's basically found in Russia, and not just because a lot of these things that come out of Russia seem to be associated with those kind of Spartan heroic type of freezing cold temperatures and still being able to perform, but a little bit like the astronauts in the cosmonaut program were pushed to the extreme and were given adaptogens like ginseng. But sea buckthorn is a kind of native of Siberia, contains vast quantities of vitamin C amongst other things. But basically, studies are done with this plant, sea buckthorn, and ginger extracts showed this expression of genes associated with adipocyte differentiation in a particular cell line more than any single extract treatment, and the combination inhibited lipid accumulation in hepatocytes. So this is basically fat accumulation in the liver more effectively than the single extract. However, which phytochemicals of Hypophae rhamnoides and ginger have synergistic effects needs to be further investigated, because, like I said, when you take these isolated components, it's very difficult sometimes to emulate the same result. Okay, I think we got a caller on the line. Let's take this first caller of 2025. Caller, you're on the air. Where are you from? What's your question?
Oh, okay. I live in Arcata.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't have a question.
Oh.
I have a statement.
Okay.
Yeah. Because you've helped me understand how we can heal naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I busted my arm from shoulder to wrist. Let's see, when was that? Like the end of July, and it's when you bust your arm that bad, it's going to last for a while. But somebody gave me, this is so important for people to know, comfrey.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yep. She brought me comfrey.
Yep.
I made tea. I chewed the root.
You took it internally as a tea, you said?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, and also, she made a salve.
Okay.
Yeah, and I put that on my arm, and I'm a medical miracle.
Great. What happened?
I mean, let's talk about the good news.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Is Dr. Pete no longer in his human form?
No, he's transcended the earth.
Oh, okay. Wondered about that.
Yeah.
What a wonderful human being.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Oh my God.
Every time we
Oh
step
my
into the
God.
studio, it's just not the same. But hey, the living are going to carry on, and one day we'll be gone as well.
Mm. Well, I mean, in our, in what we think is normal, like, what's normal? I don't know. I have no idea.
It's different to everybody.
But yeah, that was interesting. Because I've been listening over the years, and I learned a lot. And,
I didn't want to
so
I didn't want to put any negative spin on what you said about taking comfrey internally, but just in case people that are out there that are listening come to the conclusion that I haven't said anything about it, it's really not indicated. I mean, pyrrolizidine alkaloids in comfrey have been well known for a long time as being hepatotoxic, and so there are some varieties of comfrey that are very low in pyrrolizidine alkaloids, but in terms of our license in England, we were not allowed to give comfrey internally, but it totally was used as a poultice for broken bones to be used externally. But the other thing I would say, and this is just a kind of blanket statement, with estrogen production for a female, broken bones can be more difficult to mend properly and completely because estrogen is a definite inflammatory mediator, and so for females, especially if they're postmenopausal and their estrogen is not being opposed by progesterone, can be definitely much harder to heal properly. And there are plenty of herbs, and I think I've covered these in several months on KMUD, talking about osteoblastic and osteoproliferative herbs that have been well shown to increase bone remodeling and to lay down new bone and to strengthen bone. And Chinese herbal medicine has a lot to say about protecting bones and growing bones and making them stronger with specific herbs. So I like your commendation of what you had as a pathology and a trauma, and you say that you've healed up pretty good.
Yeah, I've been called a medical miracle.
Good.
Well, comfrey is excellent at healing wounds and injuries. Especially, it's very effective applied topically. It doesn't even have to be taken internally, and it's much safer not to. But we're so happy.
Delightful. I just love you both.
Thank you for your call.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your call. Okay. Wanted to discuss, if we talked about Hiphophae rhamnoides, a sea buckthorn and ginger, having a very positive effect on hepatocyte or liver, fatty liver. There was also another similar discussion by a couple, Yari et al., investigating the clinical efficacy of flaxseed and the flavonoid hesperidin in non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and they observed significant synergistic effects of the combination on the regulation of lipid metabolism. Now, most flavonoids can be subclassified. They're a pretty big family, but it can be subclassified into the following categories. Namely, namely flavones, flavonols, flavanones, flavonols, isoflavones, and anthocyanins. And flavonoids are widely distributed in our daily diet and are the major phytochemicals in foods such as vegetables, fruits, tea and cocoa, and they can exist as free aglycones but are usually combined with glycosides and dissolve in water in this form. Now, because of the potential healthcare value, safety and medical significance to it, is considered to be an indispensable ingredient in all kinds of medicines and dietary supplements. So many of the medicinal herbs that we use will contain flavonoids. If you look at any phytochemical dictionary, as it were, of a particular medicinal herb, you're probably going to find flavonoids in there. Some plants are very, they express a lot of flavonoids, and so they're primarily flavonoid rich. Other plants contain small amounts, but they're widely distributed in the plant world. So studies have shown that eating foods rich in flavonoids is associated with lower cardiovascular risk because of a significant reduction in cholesterol levels and, more importantly here, I feel, the free radical scavenging activity that's well noted with flavonoids. And we'll discuss some of that in terms of cell cycle and the effects of reactive oxygen species, etc., through inflammation. Now, flavonoids can regulate the imbalance of lipid metabolism by inhibiting lipid peroxidation and endogenous lipid biosynthesis and promoting lipid redistribution and exogenous lipid metabolism, significantly reducing triglycerides, total cholesterol, and LDL-C levels, for example. To investigate the interrelationship among flavonoids in the antioxidant and hyperlipidemic effects, Quinn et al. Used ever-red and ever-green leaves during the development of crabapple cultivars. They identified a total of 16 flavonoids from them and predicted a positive interaction of flavonoids in ever-red by principal component analysis, and the experimental results also showed that the total antioxidant capacity was significantly higher than the sum of the antioxidant capacity of individual compounds. Again, another synergistic effect. As I said, sea buckthorn is rich in flavonoids, which have hypolipidemic, cholesterol-lowering effects, and hypoglycemic effects for people that are insulin sensitive, insulin resistant, for example, have slightly higher glucose than they should. This is in mouse models, of course, fed a high-fat diet. And then polyphenols are secondary metabolites produced by many edible plants and have anti-diabetic, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and hypolipidemic capabilities. As an antioxidant, polyphenols are able to reduce oxidative damage to lipids, proteins, enzymes, carbohydrates, and DNA in living cells and tissues, which is mainly attributed to the ability to scavenge free radicals and provide hydrogen atoms or chelate metal ions. So the combination of several polyphenol components could improve antioxidant and hypolipidemic efficiency, which can expand their applications in nutrition and biomedicine. For example, an article by Hio et al. Found that individual phenolic compounds showed their specific antioxidant capacity, and the sum of the antioxidant capacity of phenolic compounds resulted in an increase in total antioxidant capacity. You're listening to Ask Your Herb, Dr. KMD Galville 91.1 FM. From now until the top of the hour, you're invited to call in with any questions. The number is 707-923-3911. And, okay, we've got another caller on the air. Caller, you're on the air. Where are you from? What's your question? Hello, you're on the air. Where are you from and what's your question?
Hey, caller, you'll have to start that again. And where are you from?
Where am I from?
Yeah, hi, you're on the air. Where are you from and what's your question?
Okay, I'm Bud Rogers. I'm from here, and my question is, could you just comment on the use of glyphosate on, our crops and how that may affect our health?
Okay, so Bud, I can't go into a big discourse here, but we spent the last 2 months or maybe 3 months talking about that very thing and all of the negative effects of glyphosate and its cancer-promoting activity, and widely present in many conventionally grown crops. So without wasting any time right now, I appreciate your question, you calling in, but if you wanted to listen to the archives or look on YouTube at Western Botanical Medicine, look at November, October, September, you'll find some of the title there will have glyphosate in the title of the podcast. So take a look at that. Okay, I think there's another caller on the air. Caller, you're on the air. Where are you from? What's your question?
Hi, this is Megan, and I was interested to hear about the polyphenols and the flavonoids, and I do apologize. You could have covered this in the archive sessions as well, but I do have cardiac sort of issues, and they're telling me that I need to reduce my cholesterol rather. Mm-hmm. So I was interested to know if you could give me some ideas of foods that are high in the polyphenols and flavonoids, or a resource to look to. Thank you so much. Okay.
Well, I think quite simply, without spending a long time on it, because we're getting close to the top of the hour, but polyphenols, gallocatechin gallate, EGCG, from green tea is one of the main, well, not one of the main, it's a good one. It's one of those polyphenol-rich substances. So green tea is a great source of polyphenols. Resveratrol is another excellent polyphenol, and you're going to find resveratrol in Japanese knotweed as an extract, as a straight resveratrol extract, or as an extract of Japanese knotweed. Plenty of other polyphenols around, but I think of those two as the first that kind of jump into my mind. Okay, so go ahead.
I'll ask for a friend, someone who has arterial issues. I'd recommend hawthorn and cherries. Can you add on that?
Yeah, okay, so hawthorn, for sure, with the polyphenols that you'll find in the flowering herb, or the herb is a tree, but when the tree is in full flower in May, the amines that you smell from the tree flower, that is well used as a blood pressure regulating agent, and so that certainly could be used. If someone's talking about cholesterol from a arterial perspective, cholesterol lowering herbs that would have polyphenols in them could do that. And then, like I said, things like resveratrol and genistein are all.
It was more about preventing against an aneurysm, or it's already expanded,
well,
and so to keep it supple and strong.
Yeah, the main.
And then you want to be using vascular supportive herbs
hawthorn
like
berries will do that
gotukola
for sure.
and sea buckthorn, and butcher's broom,
Yeah, but
horse chestnut.
Yeah, if you're talking about the endothelia becoming dilated, as in an aneurysm, at that point in time, in terms of trying to strengthen that tissue to prevent it bursting, which is the end sequelae of an aneurysm and why they want to deal with it, you want connective tissue strengthening herbs.
And you want to make sure the blood pressure is low. So, hawthorn berries and flowers, and our extract has both of those in there. They, they covered several.
The berries have more of a bearing on the endothelia, so that would be more protective for vessels that are getting damaged and dilating that way. Yeah.
And avoid all polyunsaturated oils. They damage the endothelial of all your blood vessels. Do not eat any PUFA. Polyunsaturated fatty acids. They are the worst thing in combination with iron. That is what they find under cholesterol plaques. The cholesterol plaque is just the bandage your body puts on it to cover the free radical reaction and the damage that's going on in the endothelial. And I know we have another caller.
Okay, so let's take our next caller. Caller, you're on the air. Where from? And what's your question?
Hello?
Yeah, hi, you're on the air. Where from? What's your question?
I'm from Arcata.
Another one from Arcata. Okay. Go ahead.
I think this might have to do with what you're talking about golden seal and myrrh.
Okay. Go on. What's your question?
We're working together.
What can I what?
Synergy. The caller's asking if there's a synergy between golden seal and myrrh.
No. I don't think so. Well, there might be, but I don't think so. One's an alkaloid-rich plant, the golden seal, and then myrrh. Obviously, the resin from myrrh contains plenty of triterpenes and terpenoids.
They're both very antibacterial. Myrrh is antifungal. Golden seal is it helps restore mucous membranes, like after a cold, and helps stop a secondary bacterial infection.
Okay, so I'm not too sure if there's any specific synergy with those two, but I appreciate your question. Okay, we have another caller on the air, so let's take this next caller. Call away from. What's your question?
I'm from Fortuna.
Okay.
All right, mate. From Australia.
Okay.
I'm calling from Fortuna.
Go ahead.
I might be off subject a little bit here.
Okay.
But I had an epiphany when I heard you talking about immuno and everything. Think about the Japanese. They eat more eggs than anybody else. I learned that on Kmart today.
Eggs, did you say?
Yes, eggs.
Okay.
And I'm thinking that's a pretty rich source of nutrients.
Very, very
way
rich
back
source.
to the dinosaurs. Well, my point is, so let's just say our chickens are our modern-day dinosaurs. Not to leave out the condors, but that is the most nutritious goodies you could get from a lot of those birds we're eating nowadays. They're just eating bugs and vegetables. cows eat amazing amount of bugs. So there's that protein content. I don't know who maybe Joel Salatin put that in there in his expose on the brilliance of vegetarianism. But anyways, my point is, I just think that chickens are your best friend. They're probably the best food. I mean, it's a win-win. I mean, let's just eat the dinosaurs.
Yeah,
So I'm being
eggs are
facetious, of course.
yeah, eggs are wonderful. They have a lot of different B vitamins. They have fat soluble vitamins in them, and they
Protein.
are a great protein.
Yep.
They're an
I mean,
excellent
look what
food.
the animal is eating, though. It's
Well,
eating
yeah, as long as
like
they're
a
not
cow.
long as they're not corn-fed chickens and they're free-ranging, what they should be doing.
Well, a
like
little
picking
bit
up
of
bugs
corn
and-
is fine. It's just that
Yeah,
they
well,
need to be
they're-
free
I
range.
hate-
They're free range.
I don't hang out with any chickens that are not free ranging. I'm sorry.
Yes, we don't either. We're chicken
Oh,
snobs.
Bless your hearts. Anyways, I just thought that it was an epiphany about nutrition. The pre-exchange of nutrition. Eggs are just absolutely incredible.
We agree.
And-
Thank you very much for calling in and reminding us that we love eggs too.
Okay, appreciate those calls. Let's see here, 7:53. If anybody wants to call in quickly, they can. I think we can maybe get them done, 707-923-3911. Otherwise, I shall continue here for the next four or 5 minutes before we sign off with the end of this show. So, okay, we're not going to get into all of it, unfortunately. We will carry on next month, though, for sure. But what I wanted to carry on with was all of the different synergistic effects of compounds when they are working together being much greater than the individual sum of the individual components. So, quercetin from various plants and known for its antioxidant properties. Quercetin can also enhance the activity of certain drugs by improving their absorption and reducing their breakdown in the body. Phenolic compounds, caller called in about phenolics.
Well, and I just want to mention one of the herbs that's very high in quercetin is nettle leaf, and that is very effective as a tea. It doesn't have to be taken as a tincture. It's still effective as a tincture, but it's a great herbal tea.
Okay.
Soak overnight to get more mineral content and lots of quercetin.
I think we have one more caller. Let's see if we can. It's 7:55. Let's be quick. Call away from. What's your question?
Hi, I am from Pepperwood
Okay.
on the Avenue of the Giants. My question is, I take a vessel support supplement from Natural Heart Doctor that's basically just for. I'd like to know what you think about that.
Now, your voice is breaking up a little. You have a vessel protecting supplement called. I didn't get the
Yeah.
name of it.
Yeah.
Basically, what?
It's a vessel support supplement from a Natural Heart Doctor.
Mhm.
It's called taurine. Which
Taurine,
is
okay.
Taurine.
Amino acid, yeah.
It's amino acid. I'm still having some of the same issues. I'm listening to you talk about
Yeah.
hawthorn.
Tell me this quickly. What vessels are we looking to protect here? And I'll give you some quick.
Inside the capillaries inside my heart.
Well, let's see here. There's no capillaries inside the heart as such.
Small blood vessels, I guess.
So what's the condition that you're trying to treat?
It's called spontaneous coronary arterial dissection.
Oh, okay. So that's very different. Yeah, that's not a capillary thing. That's a dissection of the aorta or something similar to that. So again, you got 3 sections of it. Lamina propria, media, and intima, and the dissection will occur between the intima and the lamina. And how you would stop that in terms of protecting your vessels, things that are going to support your vessel structure would be some things like hawthorn that I've mentioned.
And bilberry.
This is specific for the heart.
Okay.
Yeah, bilberry.
And
would
making
be,
sure your blood pressure is kept
yeah,
low so it
obviously
doesn't push on that dissection.
Any dissection there's going to want to be brought down with low, to lower your blood pressure. I think
Things like gotu kola.
Go to cola too, but I think the main thing I think about is hawthorn, definitely. Nurse of the heart, the Germans have called it. Been used for a very long time. I think there's plenty of other scope, like I said, with blood pressure and being female with progesterone, potentially with thyroid hormone, but that's something that would have to be discussed slowly and rationally, and it's unfortunately getting close to the top of the hour where we're going to have to sign off.
I promised the caller I would ask for recommendations for sleep apnea.
Okay. Sleep apnea. Okay. Sarah?
Make sure you don't have an overbite and your lower jaw is not trapped backwards, blocking and limiting your airways.
Try to sleep on your front or your side. And
try to sleep on your front or your side. Yeah. Try to pull your lower jaw forward. You can sleep upright in a chair. They make jaw devices. I mean, there's so many different things. But also, don't eat too late at night. Make sure that you sleep well. I mean, there's lots of different stuff, but...
Okay, it's 2 minutes to, and we've got to close out here because we've got eager beavers. All right, so you've been listening to Ask Your Herb, Dr. KMD Garberville 91.1 FM. And the third Friday of next month, we'll be back. We'll be continuing the discussion on synergistic herbs, looking at flavonoids, looking at polyphenols, looking at some basic, research papers that have been written to support what we're going to talk about here from a scientific perspective, looking at multi-drug resistant bacteria and the effect of synergistic herbs with antibacterials. And thanks so much for listening. So my name's Andrew Murray.
My name's Sarah Johannesson Murray. Thank you for joining us tonight.
And we can be found on westernbotanicalmedicine.com. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Nicely getting our deal of advice